I never thought the hardest rain I would ever stand in would not be about the weather. There I was, soaked to the bone, staring at the warm glow of light spilling from my childhood home, through windows I had looked out of 1,000 times before. But now I stood on the wrong side of that glass, locked out in the darkness, while my father's words still echoed in my head. "You are not welcome in this house." Those 7 words hit harder than any storm ever could. How does everything go so wrong in just a few hours? The thing is, it was not even my fault. But nobody believed me. Not my dad. Not when my own brother stood there and lied straight to his face. And the worst part, I could not prove my innocence. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. But before I tell you how my own brother destroyed everything I had, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. If you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, hit that like button. And subscribe, because what happened 2 weeks later? Well, justice has a funny way of showing up when you least expect it. Now let me tell you about the day my life fell apart. Kyle and I grew up in a modest 2-story house painted pale blue, with a small front yard and a white picket fence, in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. It was the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew each other, where kids rode bikes until the street lights came on, and where you could leave your front door unlocked without a second thought. Our house was not fancy, but it was home. Mom kept flowers in the window boxes, and Dad maintained the lawn with an almost military precision every Saturday morning. From the time we were kids, I was always the responsible one. I made good grades, helped around the house, stayed out of trouble. Kyle was different. 3 years younger than me, he was the wild one. Not in a bad way, just more impulsive. He would forget his homework, lose track of time. Playing video games, get into small arguments with neighbors. Nothing serious, but enough to keep our parents on their toes. Despite our differences, we were close. I looked out for him. When Dad got on his case about his grades or his messy room, I would step in and calm things down. That was just what big brothers did. Our father Richard was a man of few words and high expectations. He worked as a supervisor at a manufacturing plant and believed in discipline, responsibility, and earning your way. He was not the type to hand out compliments easily. A nod of approval was as good as it got. Our mother Linda balanced him out. She was gentle, always ready with a hug and a home-cooked meal. She tried to keep the peace when tensions ran high, but when Dad made a decision, it was final. Mom rarely challenged him. I had been working at a logistics company for 3 years, starting in the warehouse and working my way up. Last month, I got promoted to assistant manager. It was not a huge leap, but it meant better pay, more responsibility, and a real career path. Dad actually shook my hand when I told him. Mom cried happy tears. Even Kyle seemed proud, though I caught a flicker of something else in his eyes. I did not think much of it at the time. It was a Friday night in October. I had just finished a brutal week at work training new hires and dealing with a system upgrade that had everyone stressed. All I wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and collapse on my bed. I pulled into the driveway around 7:30, grabbed my laptop, bag, and wallet from the passenger seat, and headed inside. The house smelled like Mom's pot roast. Dad was already in bed. He had been working overtime and was exhausted. Kyle was home too. I heard the sound effects of some video game coming from his room upstairs. I dropped my laptop bag on the kitchen table, like I always did. My wallet was thick with cash. I had just been to the bank that afternoon and withdrawn $800. I was planning to buy a used car from a coworker on Monday and needed the cash. I set the wallet right next to my laptop bag, grabbed a plate of food Mom had left for me, and headed upstairs to shower. I was up there for about an hour, showering, changing into comfortable clothes, just trying to unwind. When I came back down to the kitchen to grab a glass of water before bed, something felt off. My laptop bag was exactly where I'd left it. But my wallet was lighter. I opened it. Every single bill was gone. $800 vanished. My credit cards were still there, my license, everything else. Just the cash was missing. I stood there staring at the empty wallet, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. Did I forget to get the money? No, I clearly remembered the bank teller counting it out. Did I leave it in the car? I ran outside in my socks, checked the car. Nothing. I came back inside and started tearing through my room. Maybe I had put it somewhere and forgotten. But deep down I knew. The money had been in my wallet. And now it was not. I went downstairs and found Mom in the living room, watching a cooking show. Dad had gone to bed early, she said. He had a migraine. I asked her if she had seen anyone go into the kitchen. She shook her head. She had been in the living room the whole time. Kyle had been home too, she added. He had been in his room playing games all evening. I stood there, my heart starting to pound. Kyle. Last week, Kyle had asked me for $500. He wanted to buy a PlayStation 5. All his friends had one, he said. He felt left out. I had said no. Not because I did not want to help him, but because I thought he needed to learn to save his own money. He had a part-time job at a grocery store. He could save up if he really wanted it. He had not been happy with my answer. We had not talked much since then. I went upstairs and knocked on Kyle's door. He opened it, headphones around his neck, controller in hand. I could hear gunfire and explosions from his game. "Did you see anyone come into the kitchen tonight?" I asked. He looked at me with those big brown eyes and shook his head. "Nope, been up here the whole time." Why, I studied his face. Something felt wrong. When Kyle lied, he had a tell. He would glance to the left just for a split second. And there it was, that tiny flicker of his eyes. But I did not want to believe it. This was my brother. He would not steal from me. Would he? I told him my money was missing. He raised his eyebrows in surprise. "That is crazy, man. You sure you did not leave it somewhere?" I wanted to push harder, to ask him directly if he took it. But the words stuck in my throat. Accusing your own brother of theft felt like crossing a line I could not uncross. So I just nodded and went back to my room. I barely slept that night. Saturday morning hit like a bomb. I woke up to my father's voice booming from his bedroom. "What the hell happened to my money?" I shot out of bed and rushed downstairs. Mom was standing at the bottom of the stairs, her hand over her mouth. Kyle was already in the living room looking pale. Dad came thundering down the stairs, his face red, a vein pulsing in his temple. "I had $400 in my wallet," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "It was in my dresser drawer. Now it is gone." My stomach dropped. The living room suddenly felt too small, too hot. We all stood there, the four of us, in terrible silence. Dad looked at each of us in turn. "Someone in this house took that money." His voice was cold controlled, which was somehow worse than yelling. Mom tried to interject. "Richard, maybe you misplaced it. Let us look around before we jump to conclusions." Dad cut her off with a look. "Linda, I am not stupid. $1,200 does not just vanish into thin air." I spoke up. "Dad, my money is missing too. $800 from my wallet. I left it on the kitchen table last night, and when I came back, it was gone." Dad turned to me, his eyes narrowing. "You are telling me your money is missing too?" I nodded. Dad crossed his arms. "Only people in this house last night were us. Someone here took that money." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Dad turned to Kyle first. "Kyle, you have been wanting money for that game console. Did you take it?" Kyle's head snapped up, his eyes going wide. "No, Dad. I swear I did not." His voice cracked, and I saw his hands trembling. He looked genuinely terrified. Dad stared at him for a long moment, then turned to me. "What about you, Emilio? The question hit me like a slap. Dad, it was my money that got stolen too. Why would I steal from myself? That does not make any sense. Dad's jaw tightened. Maybe you were trying to cover something up. You took my money and pretended yours was stolen to avoid suspicion. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. That is ridiculous. Why would I do that? You know me, Dad. I have never stolen anything in my life. Dad's eyes were hard. You just got promoted. Maybe you are in some kind of trouble. Gambling debt? I could not believe what I was hearing. I have never gambled in my life. You know that. I do not have any debts. I am trying to save money to buy a house. This is insane. Then Kyle spoke up, his voice small and hesitant. Dad, I did not want to say this, but... We all turned to look at him. He was wringing his hands, looking down at the floor, like the words were being dragged out of him against his will. Yesterday afternoon, I saw Emilio going through your room when you were at the store. The world stopped. What I stared at Kyle, unable to process what he had just said. That is a lie. Kyle's eyes met mine for just a second before darting away. I thought it was weird, he continued, his voice gaining a little more confidence. But I did not think much of it. I figured maybe he was looking for something. But now with the money missing, rage flooded through me. Kyle, why are you lying? I was never in Dad's room. I have no reason to go in there. Kyle looked at me and I saw something in his expression I had never seen before. A coldness, a calculation. I am sorry, bro. I wish I did not see it, but I did. I wanted to lunge at him to shake the truth out of him, but I forced myself to stay still. Dad, please. He is lying. I do not know why, but he is. You have to believe me. Dad looked between the two of us. His face was unreadable. Mom stepped forward, her voice pleading. Richard, let us think this through. Emilio has never given us a reason not to trust him. He has always been responsible, always honest. Let us not rush to judgment. But Dad shook his head. Linda, Kyle has no reason to lie about this. Why would he make something like that up? He is telling us what he saw. I felt something break inside me. Dad, please. Search my room. Check my bank account. I will show you everything. I have nothing to hide. Dad stood up slowly, and the way he looked at me made me feel like a stranger. I have had enough of this, Emilio. You are 25 years old. It is time to take responsibility for your actions. I am taking responsibility, I shot back, my voice rising. But I did not steal anything. How can I take responsibility for something I did not do? Dad's voice dropped to a deadly calm. I do not need to check anything. My own son would not lie to me about something this serious. He trusts Kyle over me. The realization was a knife to the gut. I turned to Kyle one more time, desperation creeping into my voice. Kyle, please, tell the truth. Why are you doing this? What did I do to you? Kyle just stared at the floor, his jaw set, saying nothing. The silence was worse than any words. Mom was crying now, soft sobs that she tried to muffle with her hand. I looked at her silently, begging her to say something, to stand up for me. But she just stood there, tears streaming down her face, powerless against Dad's judgment. Dad pointed toward the front door. Get out. The words were so simple, so final. I blinked. What I said, get out of my house. I will not have a thief living under my roof. Mom let out a choked cry. Richard, please. He is our son. We cannot just throw him out. We need to talk about this. Dad whirled on her. He stole from us, Linda. From his own family. There is nothing to talk about. I felt numb. This could not be happening. Dad, please. Just give me a chance to prove my innocence. Let me explain. But he was done listening. I gave you every chance. I raised you better than this. You have disappointed me for the last time. Each word was a hammer blow. I looked at Mom, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. She was sobbing openly now, but she did not move to stop Dad. I looked at Kyle. He still would not meet my eyes. "I hope you can live with what you are doing," I said to him, my voice hollow. He flinched, but said nothing. Outside thunder rumbled. The sky had opened up, rain drumming against the windows. I walked upstairs like I was moving through water, grabbed a duffel bag and threw in some clothes, my phone charger, my toothbrush. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely zip the bag. When I came back downstairs, Dad was standing by the door, arms crossed, waiting. "And do not come back until you can own up to what you did," he said. I stopped in front of him, looking into the eyes of the man who had raised me, searching for any hint of doubt, any crack in his certainty. There was none. I opened the door. Rain lashed at my face, cold and brutal. The wind tore at my jacket. I turned back one last time. Mom was crying in the living room. Kyle stood in the hallway, half hidden in shadow, still refusing to look at me. Dad's final words followed me out into the storm. "You are not welcome in this house." The door slammed shut behind me with a sound like a gunshot. I stood there on the front porch, rain soaking through my clothes in seconds. The street was empty, dark, except for the lonely glow of streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement. I felt more alone than I had ever felt in my life. Anger, confusion, betrayal, all of it crashed over me like waves. How did this happen? How did my own brother do this to me? I pulled out my phone with numb fingers and called Marcus, my best friend since high school. He answered on the third ring, groggy. "Dude, it is almost midnight." "What is up, Marcus?" I said, and my voice cracked. "I need help." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Marcus's car, water dripping from my hair onto the seat, staring straight ahead as he drove. He did not press me for details, at first just drove. When we got to his apartment, he handed me a towel and made coffee. Then I told him everything. Marcus listened, his expression growing darker with every word. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. "That is insane," he finally said. "Your dad did not even give you a chance to defend yourself." I shook my head, and Kyle just lied straight to his face. Marcus swore under his breath. "What are you going to do?" I did not have an answer. I just sat there holding the coffee mug, feeling the warmth seep into my cold hands, and wondered how my life had fallen apart so completely in the span of a few hours. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Marcus let me crash on his couch, would not take no for an answer. "I will not let you sleep in your car, man. Stay as long as you need." I was grateful, but every night I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, unable to turn off my brain. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. Not just from Kyle, but from Dad. The fact that he believed Kyle over me without question, that he would throw me out into a storm based on a lie, it broke something inside me that I was not sure could be fixed. Mom texted me a few times. "Are you okay? Where are you staying? Please let me know you are safe." I replied with short messages. "I am fine. Staying with a friend." I did not want to punish her, but I could not bring myself to have a real conversation either. She had not stood up for me when it mattered. Dad did not reach out at all. I guess in his mind I was guilty until proven innocent, and since I had been kicked out, the case was closed. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into my job, staying late, volunteering for extra projects, anything to keep my mind occupied. My coworkers noticed I seemed off, but I brushed off their concerns. "Just dealing with some family stuff," I would say with a tight smile. They did not push. I started looking for apartments I could afford on my salary. The promotion had given me a raise, but it was not much. Most places wanted first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. It was going to take time to save up, especially now that I was essentially starting from scratch. At night, the anger would come. I would lie on Marcus's couch, fists clenched, thinking about Kyle. Why did he do it? We had our differences, sure, but I never thought he hated me. Was it really just about the PlayStation? Or was there something deeper, some resentment I had been too blind to see? The questions ate at me, but I had no answers. And the worst part was I could not even confront him. I was banned from my own home. Marcus tried to keep my spirits up. We would watch movies, order pizza, talk about anything but my family. But I could see the worry in his eyes. One night, about a week and a half in, he said, "You know, this is not your fault, right? You did not do anything wrong." "I know," I said. "But knowing it and feeling it are two different things." He nodded. "Your dad will realize he made a mistake. Give it time." I wanted to believe him, but time felt like a luxury I did not have. It was a Wednesday afternoon exactly 2 weeks after I had been kicked out. I was at work reviewing inventory reports when my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, my heart rate picking up. She had not called, only texted. I stepped outside to the parking lot and answered. "Mom." Her voice came through the line, broken and raw. "Emilio. Oh God, Emilio. I am so sorry. I am so sorry." My pulse spiked. "Mom, what is wrong? What happened?" She could barely get the words out between sobs. "It was Kyle. He took the money. He lied about you." I heard him. "Emilio." I heard him laughing about it. The world tilted. "What?" When she took a shaky breath. "Just now. He was on the phone with his friend Trevor. He did not know I was in the kitchen. He told Trevor everything. How he stole the money. How he framed you. How he laughed when your father kicked you out. He said he got away with it. That you took the fall and he got his PlayStation." I leaned against the building, my legs suddenly weak. All the air went out of my lungs. He admitted it. Mom was crying harder now. Yes, every word. I heard it all. He even laughed, Emilio. He laughed about what he did to you. Rage flooded through me, hot and blinding. Then just as quickly, it drained away, leaving me hollow. "Where is he now?" I asked, my voice flat. "He is here." I confronted him. He tried to deny it at first, but I told him I heard everything. He finally admitted it. "Your father is on his way home. We are going to make this right." I closed my eyes. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of hell, of sleeping on a couch, of feeling like a criminal, of being disowned by my own father. All because my brother wanted a video game. Mom was still talking, her words tumbling over each other. "Please come home. We need to see you. We need to apologize. We were so wrong. I am so sorry, Emilio." I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to yell, to scream at her for not believing me in the first place. But the exhaustion was too heavy. "I will think about it, Mom. I need some time." She understood, or at least she said she did. "Please know that we love you. And we are going to fix this." I hung up and stood there in the parking lot, phone in my hand, trying to process everything. Kyle had confessed. The truth was out. I should have felt vindicated, relieved. Instead, I just felt tired. So incredibly tired. I went back inside, told my boss I needed to leave early due to a family emergency, and drove to Marcus's place. When I told him what happened, he let out a low whistle. "So your mom heard him bragging about it?" I nodded. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "What are you going to do?" I sat down on the couch, the same couch I had been sleeping on for 2 weeks, and put my head in my hands. I do not know. Part of me does not even want to go back. Marcus sat down next to me. "I get it, man. But they know the truth now. That has to count for something." "Does it?" I looked at him. They did not believe me when it mattered. Dad threw me out in the rain because he chose to believe Kyle over me. How do I just forget that? You do not forget it, Marcus said quietly. But maybe you can find a way to move forward. Not for them, for you. I thought about that for a long time. The truth was I needed closure. I needed to look Kyle in the eye and ask him why. I needed to hear my father admit he was wrong. Maybe then I could start to heal. 3 days later, on Saturday morning, I drove back to the house. My hands were shaking as I pulled into the driveway. The blue house looked exactly the same, like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Dad was waiting on the porch when I pulled up. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. His shoulders were slumped, his face gray and drawn. When I got out of the car, he stood up and I saw that his eyes were red. Emilio, he started, his voice rough. I stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, keeping distance between us. He took a breath. I do not know how to apologize for what I did. There are no words that can make this right. I did not respond, just stood there waiting. I should have trusted you, he continued. I should have listened to you. I should have given you the benefit of the doubt. You are my son, and I failed you. I failed you as a father. The words I had wanted to hear for 2 weeks should have felt like relief. Instead, they just felt heavy. Yeah, I said quietly. You did. He flinched like I had hit him, but he nodded. I know I did. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you, if you will let me. He stepped down from the porch, and before I could react, he wrapped his arms around me. I stood stiff for a moment, every muscle tense. Then something in me broke, and I hugged him back. We stood there in the driveway, father and son, trying to piece together what had been shattered. When we pulled apart, Dad wiped at his eyes. Your mother is inside. She has been a wreck since she found out. And Kyle? He paused, his jaw tightening. Kyle is here too. I nodded and followed him into the house. Mom was in the living room. When she saw me, she burst into tears and rushed over, pulling me into a tight embrace. I am so sorry, baby. I am so sorry. I hugged her back, feeling her shoulders shake. It is okay, Mom, I said, even though it was not. Not really. Not yet. Then I saw Kyle. He was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, looking smaller somehow. His eyes were swollen, his face blotchy. When our eyes met, he looked away immediately. I walked over to him slowly. Kyle finally looked up, and I saw real fear in his eyes. Why, I asked. That was all I could manage. Just why? He swallowed hard. I was jealous, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Of what I could not keep the bitterness out of my tone. Kyle's eyes filled with tears. Of you. Of everything. You were always the good one. The responsible one. The one Dad was proud of. I felt like I was always in your shadow. Everyone always compared me to you. I felt anger rising in my chest. So you destroyed my life because you felt overshadowed. He flinched. I wanted to hurt you. I wanted you to feel what it was like to have everything taken away. And when you said no about the money for the PlayStation, I just snapped. I saw an opportunity and I took it. The honesty was almost worse than the lie had been. You got me kicked out, Kyle. You made Dad think I was a thief. You destroyed my relationship with him. For a video game, tears were streaming down his face now. I know it was wrong. I do not have an excuse. I was angry and stupid, and I did not think about what it would really do to you. I am sorry, Emilio. I know it does not fix anything, but I am sorry. I stood there looking at my little brother and felt a complicated mix of emotions. Anger, yes, but also sadness, pity even. I cannot forgive you right now, I said finally. Maybe someday, but not today. What you did, it broke something between us, and I do not know if it can be fixed. Kyle nodded, wiping at his eyes. I understand. I deserve that. Dad spoke up from behind me. Kyle is going to therapy, and he is paying back every cent he took. He got a second job. It will take time, but he will make it right. I looked at Dad. That is a start. But money is not the issue here. It is trust. The next few months were hard. I did not move back into the house. I found a small studio apartment across town and signed a lease. I needed my own space, my own life, separate from the family that had so easily turned on me. Mom and Dad understood, or at least they said they did. Mom would call every few days, checking in, making sure I was eating okay. Dad and I met for coffee once a week. The conversations were stilted at first, careful. We were learning how to be father and son again, but the old easy relationship was gone. Maybe it would come back someday. Maybe it would not. Kyle and I barely spoke. He sent me a long text message one night, apologizing again, explaining that he was seeing a therapist and working through his jealousy issues. I read it, but did not respond right away. I needed time. Forgiveness was not something I could force. It had to come naturally, if it came at all. Marcus told me I was handling it better than he would have. I do not know about that, I said. Some days I am okay. Other days I am so angry I can barely see straight. That is normal, he said. What happened to you was not normal. You get to feel however you feel about it. The thing I realized slowly, painfully, was that this experience had taught me something important. The people you trust the most can hurt you the deepest. Not because they are bad people, but because you have given them the power to reach the most vulnerable parts of you. My father was not a villain. He was a flawed man who made a terrible mistake. Kyle was not evil. He was a jealous kid who let his resentment take control and made a choice that spiraled out of control. And me, I was learning that forgiveness did not mean forgetting. It meant choosing to let go of the anger so it would not poison me from the inside out. 6 months later, things were better. Not perfect, but better. I had settled into my apartment, made it feel like home. Work was going well. I got another small promotion, which came with a raise that made rent a little less stressful. Dad and I were talking more regularly now. The conversations felt more natural. We even went to a baseball game together, something we used to do all the time when I was a kid. It felt good. Different, but good. Mom and I had dinner once a week, just the two of us. She would cook my favorite meals, and we would talk about everything and nothing. She apologized so many times I finally had to tell her to stop. I forgive you, Mom. I do. You were caught in an impossible situation. She cried when I said that, but they were good tears. Kyle and I were working on it, slowly. He had kept his promise about therapy and about paying the money back. He gave me a check for the full $800 plus extra to cover what I had spent in the apartment deposit. I took it not because I needed it, but because I knew he needed to give it. We met for lunch one day, neutral ground at a diner halfway between his place and mine. It was awkward at first. We made small talk about work and the weather. Then Kyle said, I do not expect you to trust me again. I know I burned that bridge. But I want you to know I am trying to be better. I am working on myself. I looked at him across the table. I appreciate that. And for what it is worth, I do not hate you. I did for a while. But holding on to that anger was killing me. So I am letting it go. Not for you, for me. Kyle nodded, his eyes shining. That is more than I deserve. We finished our meal in more comfortable silence. It was not a full reconciliation, but it was a step. The hardest lesson I learned through all of this was about forgiveness. I always thought forgiveness meant saying it is okay, moving on like nothing happened. But that is not what it is. Forgiveness is acknowledging the hurt, sitting with it, and then choosing not to let it define you. It is deciding that the person who wronged you does not get to control your happiness anymore. It is freedom, not for them, but for yourself. And that freedom does not come easy. It is a choice you have to make every single day. Sometimes the hardest storms to weather are not the ones outside. They are the ones created by the people we love. But if there is one thing I learned, it is this. Your truth will always find its way to the light. You just have to be patient enough to wait for it. Justice might not come when you want it or how you expect it, but it comes. And when it does, you get to decide what you do with it. Hold on to bitterness and let it eat you alive, or choose to move forward and build something better. I still think about that night sometimes. Standing in the rain, locked out of my own home, feeling more alone than I ever had. It was one of the worst moments of my life. But it also taught me who I am. I learned that I am stronger than I thought. I learned that I can survive betrayal and come out the other side. And I learned that family is complicated, messy, and sometimes heartbreaking. But it is also worth fighting for even when it hurts. So if you are out there dealing with your own storm, whether it is family betrayal or something else entirely, know this. You are not alone. The pain you feel is real and valid, but it will not last forever. The truth has a way of surfacing, and when it does, you will have a choice. Let it destroy you, or let it make you stronger. I chose the latter. And I hope you will too. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your experiences might help someone else going through the same thing. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel, because I share real stories about real struggles and how we overcome them. And share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this community. I hope you find your truth, whatever storm you are weathering. Take care of yourselves and remember, you are stronger than you think.